Hi, I'm Charlotte. Welcome to Tax Talk. I'm head of tax at Pi, and I'm here with Tommy, our founder, and we're here to bring you all of the HMRC updates. So, HMRC have just announced that 1 million extra people are having to pay bank interest, but they don't know about this. What's happened?
So originally, bank interest obviously wasn't at a favourable rate, and people weren't earning much interest on their savings. An extra 1 million people are now pulled into that tax net. The high rates are obviously very attractive, and people want that secure, low risk investment. So the data was about on Tuesday released to show that an additional 1 million. So I think it's now 2 million people now have to declare tax because they're over that tax-free threshold for interest. And HMRC have been very clear. You know, if you don't declare that on tax return, then they can come after you. All of the bank interest, traditional legacy banks, and the gig economy side hustle apps, the finance apps, the smart savings apps, they've all been told to have to report all their clients' information to HMRC.
Yeah.
There's actually legislation passed on the 1st of January that made that a requirement by law.
Yeah.
So you may not see anything in the mail yet, but ultimately, if you earn over, I think it's £500 if you're a higher rate earner, and £1,000 a tax-free allowance for bank interest.
Yeah. And then actually going on to the side hustle, there's they've just brought in a new limit of £1,000, which is for all income earned from side hustle. So anything over £1,000, you have to pay tax on that. So anything you sell on eBay, Etsy, it's all included.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that a new law, or is that traditionally?
That's a new law. I think it's because so many people are now selling their unwanted items online that HMRC are just realizing that everyone is kind of just increasing their side hustle income and therefore they want to tax it.
I know that's so true because all my stuff's gone missing in my closet. And my wife is literally every week, and I'm like, "Where are my shoes?" And she's like, "Oh, I sold them." And I'm like, "I've not even worn them."
Yeah.
All my kids' stuff, I mean, it's sitting there, it's easy money, and people are quite
Exactly.
savvy.
That's the point. It's
Yeah.
easy money. People are trying to, with the cost of living at the moment, everyone needs a bit of extra cash. So
Have you put
that's the way
anything
to do
online
it.
yourself? Or you?
Everything. I moved house and everything. Me, my kids, my husband, all of our old clothes went.
He's got no
on
clothes
vintage.
left.
No,
Yeah.
nothing left. So Tommy, there have been so many new updates on the app. Can you tell us about the top changes that you've implemented recently?
Yeah, so interestingly linked to the bank interest we talked about earlier, we prioritised that now, moved that forward. Um, People don't understand there's 34 different income types for self-assessment. So legacy apps like QuickBooks and Sage and Xero, they only cover self-employment. We are the first app to cover all employment types. So your employment, self-employment, property, dividends, interest, foreign income, and the list goes on. So the challenge for us is to really work out what's the priority for our customers. And luckily on Wednesday, we had a call with HMRC and they told us the MTD signups. And after self-employment, bank interest was the most common, most in-demand income type for HMRC. So we had planned initially to have bank interest released next year. It's very difficult to release because it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
You've got, is it UK or foreign bank interest? Is it taxed or untaxed bank interest? Also, is it over £2,000? Because all those different nuances will have a different form on HMRC.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see why legacy app makers haven't, and even HMRC themselves, right? You know, £1 billion in tax revenue, 27 years of self-assessment, they actually haven't still got a tax app. Right now, you couldn't go on your HMRC app and submit your return. You have to go on a desktop. So it's a very big challenge to kind of cater for tax in the nuances with the good UI UX.
Yeah.
How does it look? How does it flow for a customer? So we've moved that forward to, we're actually working on that right now, and we have an ETA of Q4. And again, as you said earlier, there's 2 million people now that need to file and declare. People think like that small bit of interest, but over the year adds up. And again, if it's over 500 quid, if you're a higher rate, or 1,000 if you're a normal taxpayer, then you need to declare that. And our app will have that, and of course, it's completely free.
Yeah. So hang on. So if you're a sole trader or if you're just self-employed and you have a variety of different incomes, so you obviously have your bank interest, let's say you're in a property, so you get rental income. Can you do all of that on the app at the same time?
Yes. Yeah. So what sets us apart from our competitors, our big USP, and it's actually quite crazy if you think about it, it's not out there already, is as a stat we saw years ago, and it's 47% of Generation Z has multiple income types. So if you now use QuickBooks, don't get me wrong, it's a great business. It's a $140 billion company into it. You cannot declare bank interest on your app. You cannot add child benefit. You cannot add student loan. All they have is just one type of income, self-employment. Right, and we know nearly half of people have multiple income types. So you're going to have to do your self-employment return, then go onto the HMRC website, which, by the way, is closing down in 2 years, which no one knows about, which is why we're here, and file a separate return to include your self-employment profits and then your bank interest and all the nuances of self-assessment. You know, you have pension contributions, you could have national insurance contributions, and no app caters for that. And again, I know firsthand why not, and it's because it's so nuanced. And we already have 4,500 screens in the app, and we're probably only about 20% done. And it's going to take time, and we have to just work as a business and work really hard. The guys, you know, we've got a great team, and it's costs a lot of money and it's taken a lot of time. But ultimately, to be the first to market, you need to start early. So we have in our Q4 roadmap bank interest. Then we have tax reliefs. We already have capital gains, employment, self-employment, the main three types, and then we're hopefully going to have property on the app by Christmas.
Amazing.
So by next year, we should have half of the bulk of the 12 million self-assessment catered for.
So you should really be good to go by April 2025.
Yes, the idea is we have 90% of self-assessment catered for by April 25. That's the last year you can actually use the legacy website. People don't know this. HMRC are closing down. And they've called it MTD, and everyone uses the word MTD, but they haven't actually explained what it means for the normal taxpayer. You can no longer go on your PC and go on the self-assessment website, the government government website, and file your return.
Yeah.
You're going to have to use a third-party app. And there's no apps out there that cater for self-assessment at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is why they pushed back MTD 3 times, because there's not a digital solution yet. So not only will we be the solution, people are not used to paying to file a tax return, right? You've got all these outgoings anyway, so we're completely free to use.
Amazing.
And it's the Trojan horse approach. It's the freemium model where you can use our app for free, and if you want advice, we're there.
I was going to say, so if I was using your app and I wanted to have an accountant review it, is there the option for that?
100%. So we did a lot of market research, and we found out they're a bit worried about HMRC making mistakes. They're not too sure. So you have that option in the app to talk to a tax assistant. That's only at the moment priced at $6.99 a month, very cheap. And you get access to someone like yourself, 24/7, get advice if you have any questions, or you have the alternative route, which you can just file yourself. We also offer an option of a check-in fee of £59. So if you've done the return yourself and you want a peace of mind, we have a HMRC refund guarantee.
Yep.
And the other solution for us is if you don't want to get involved, you're not sure at all what to do, you can pay $149. We do it all for you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know from experience, using QuickBooks, it costs £15, £20 a month, but you're saying that the app is free. How do you make it free, and why are you making it free?
Really good question, actually. We didn't actually initially plan to have a free app. Ultimately, we're a business with overheads. And it really comes down to consumer feedback. And obviously, people would always say, look, I don't want to pay for a product. But if you actually look at most businesses and disruptive products historically, it's the price that's been disruptive as well as the product and the product features, if you know what I mean. So I always use the analogy of Spotify. You're probably as old as me, and you remember paying 15 quid for an album, and you'd have to buy multiple albums, and they came in, and it was obviously a great product digitally. It was very good looking and very sleek, clean and slick, but ultimately the value was exceptional. You could get unlimited albums for like £4 a month.
Yeah.
Netflix, same scenario. You know, you used to pay £4 for one movie at Blockbusters, down there with your parents, and now you had this unlimited library of films for like £4 a month. So when you bring a new product to market, you really have, this is what we learned really, really early, you have to really disrupt with price as well as the product. So again, you're right, legacy app makers like QuickBooks, Sage, Xero, they all charge 15, sometimes £20 a month. Xero have some plans that are like £45 a month, which obviously adds up over the year.
Yeah.
We moved our pricing from being $6.99 to completely free.
Amazing.
So you can use our app, and you can send invoices, you can bookkeep, you can upload receipts, you can track your mileage, and you can submit to HMRC all for free.
So this is not just a tax app. This is a general bookkeeping, accounting app, which then you can also systematically submit your self-assessment return through.
Yeah, it's an all-in-one app, right?
Amazing.
You don't want to have 3 or 4 products where you have to go and do different channels and different devices. So everything you need, and this is through market research, we wanted to know what people wanted and what they needed, is in one place, and it's completely free. And the way the business makes money is, one, by having a large group of data. We have scalability of the app. We have 1 million users. That has a value because we can see people's transactions, the purchases. That data is valuable. And also there's bolt-ons that we can sell at the end of the product, right? At the end of the supply chain. You can pay for a return check. You can pay for tax advice. So the idea is we disrupt the industry. And the research shows, it's very clear, people are not brand loyal when it comes to price.
Of course not. Why would they be? Everyone wants the cheapest thing they possibly can.
They are.
But as long as it is a good product, which the Pi app definitely is.
You do need to match the quality of the product as well as have. Even the value needs to be there. HMRC this week, what's been going down?
So HMRC has been in complete and utter chaos. Just this week, over 30,000 late self-assessment submission penalties have just been cancelled.
So why did they cancel the penalties?
To be honest, I think they were just overwhelmed. I think that the hours on customer service helplines was too long. And I think HMRC just thought, you know what, let's just draw the line here and then let's just deal with the next problem.
Yeah, I guess if customers can't appeal their penalties, then they can't justify them because they haven't had the ability to appeal those. It's really interesting because I read an article around a month ago of HMRC complaints at an all-time high. I remember they closed down the phone lines last year, and then there was a lot of uproar, so then they reopened the phone lines. And it's really worrying because they're taking this short-term approach of kind of short-term cuts, but ultimately it costs them long-term. I mean, they're in a mess.
They are in a complete mess. And even with the students who at the moment have been the most hard hit, because about 16,000, I think it was, 16,000 students have been overpaying on their student loans, which is just not fair. And it was all because of HMRC blunders, essentially. But what they've done is they've incorrectly included benefits as part of their PAYE instead of including them on their P11D. And therefore, it looks like they're earning more money. For example, the benefit for the company car is now on their PAYE. And therefore it looks like they need to be paying more of their student loan back. And that's where the issue has arisen. So, I mean, I recently had a client through Pi actually, and we just went through the tax calculator together and we figured out where the issue was. And then she could rectify it. She could go to HMRC and say, listen, I've been overpaying. I need my refund.
Yeah, do you know what? I think there's a wider issue with HMRC, and obviously new government coming into place now. It makes sense that they're going to review the whole thing. I think there's a big strategy around reviewing all the different departments. Do you find, speaking to your customers on the ground, are they experiencing issues with HMRC? Are there any examples of people themselves having problems?
I mean, this wasn't a personal story. I actually saw it in the news last week. There was start that again. I can't
Just say it. What were you going to say?
There's a very funny story about how a lady was told by HMRC that she'd actually died. And she obviously hadn't, and she wasn't entitled to her pension payments.
Oh, no.
And it was only because her son, I think it was her son, that then went to the media. And it was only because of that HMRC was like, hang on a second, you are alive.
You're alive.
Gave her the money back.
Yeah. That's crazy. I'm alive, please. It's crazy because ultimately this is really people's money. It's very important to people's life. You know, if they mess it up, it's catastrophic. I mean, I guess you couldn't pay our bills or anything.
No, of course. And also, you know, everyone's scared of underpaying their taxes, and you know they're worried about HMRC. And to be honest, normally they trust HMRC to get it right. So the fact that they've been getting it so wrong for so many people in this cost of living crisis as well, it's just not fair.
I do think confidence is at an all-time low of HMRC, I have to say. So in the wider scheme of things, how do you think they're going to solve this problem? What's the plan?
Well, I know that they're opening new offices. I think it's in Portsmouth. They're trying to get, I think it was about 350 new members of staff, which hopefully could ease the problem. But I just think that they need to get to the core, the root of the problem, as opposed to just opening new offices and getting new staff. I think that they just need to change their processes. And I just think it's a higher management level issue that needs to be resolved.
Have you found any kind of examples of when HMRC failed because they lack the ability to communicate between departments? So where people have lost money?
So, funny you say that. There is a story about how a family have essentially escaped. It's not saved because they used a scheme that was illegal, but they escaped a £500,000 inheritance tax fine, which is quite
How did
major.
They do that? That's a lot of money.
So basically, it was a lady called Mrs. Fleet, and what she did was she had a £1.8 million estate. And what they did was they entered into a scheme where she essentially got an artificial debt to bring her estate to, I think it was 200,000,
Under the threshold.
which is under the
Yeah.
£325,000
Tax-free.
threshold. Exactly. And so therefore there was no inheritance tax to be paid. The problem then was that HMRC actually became aware of the scheme and the wrongdoings that had happened, but they actually sent a letter to the family confirming that no tax was actually due. So they just made a complete mistake. And then HMRC, once they realised what had happened, went to the tribunal, which actually ended up ruling in the family's favour because the debt was there when the mother was still alive, and therefore the estate, even though it was using a scheme that wasn't
Illegal.
wasn't legit, the estate was below £325,000, and therefore they have escaped a £500,000.
So that mistake from that advisor basically saying that they didn't owe no tax. They just
and it was a pure miscommunication between departments.
Wow, well, that's a shame for HMRC.
I know.
So that's one example of HMRC, I guess, and that's a lot of money for one customer. So that must add up over what's their bottom line like this year?
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely awful for them. So HMRC are actually owed 43 billion worth in taxes in total, and they've actually just admitted that 19 billion they will never recover. So there are clearly so many things that HMRC need to do in order to at least claw back some of this money. Do you have any idea the kind of things that they could be tackling?
So there was a report last week about their cut on football clubs. Premier League.
Yeah.
It's like a £5 billion a year industry, and there's a lot of kind of tax efficiency schemes, tax dodging schemes. I saw an article where there's an investigation actually right now open into 20 football clubs.
Oh wow!
84 different players, and I think it's to the tune of like £384 million. So I think football could be a big one for HMRC. Obviously, you've got Man City, who have 115 charges for financial irregularities. And that's $1 billion industry. So I don't think anyone's safe. I really don't.
Do you know why they're owed over 300 million?
I think a lot of it's coming down to agent payments, benefits, like you said earlier, about who burdens the cost of an agent fee. Should it be a P11D benefit or should it just be taxable? There's clubs at the very top level. You're talking millions of pounds of transfer fees if they can find a tax efficient scheme. I know in Spain especially. There's a player that's actually arrested. Lionel Messi was actually arrested for tax avoidance.
Oh my gosh!
But I mean, they're getting advice from his agents, and they don't give a crap about the footballer. So if the kickback comes, it's the player. I mean, hey, this is what I say to all customers: you're liable end of the day. So you have to be you can't blame ignorance on not knowing what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah.
Get a second opinion and make sure you can even talk to HMRC and ask if this is a legit scheme.
Yeah.
Because if they do come back and they penalise you, then there'll be penalties as well as the original HMRC debt.
Yeah, they do say that the small investment in financial advice will just save you thousands in the long run.
The ROI is there, is 10x, is 10x at least. And as you said earlier, HMRC have this massive tax gap, and they are really allocating officers to pursue people aggressively because they know if they get one good clawback, it could pay for the officer's cost 10 times over. So, right, some fun stuff now. Some did you knows. Let's see how good your tax knowledge is. The longest jail sentence for tax evasion. This is globally, by the way. How long do you think was the longest sentence?
30 years?
More?
40?
More. Listen, the government, they want their money. They want their taxes.
Okay, well, 70? I mean, that's like the average
More.
age. More than 70?
Yeah.
100?
More.
150?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Basically, if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to be in jail till you die.
Yeah.
They want you to pay your taxes.
Wow, that's actually fascinating. Well, do you know what country that was?
America.
Wow.
Okay. Al Capone, one of the most dangerous gangsters. Do you know what he was convicted for? His only crime?
Drugs?
No.
Murder?
He did actually kill people and sell drugs, but no, he wasn't convicted for that.
What, are you going to say tax evasion?
Yeah. You can't get away with it, HMRC. The only thing he was actually convicted for was tax evasion.
Wow.
Yeah, all that crime.
That's shocking.
These are actually crazy. It just shows you how bad tax is, right? There's no way. Do you know the year in which the first UK tax legislation came into force in the UK?
I'd guess around, I don't know, 1920s. Let's say 1921.
Earlier.
Okay. 1800s, 1870.
Not far off, 1799. And
Wow.
do you know what it was to fund?
I have no idea.
A war against Napoleon.
Oh, wow.
And it's been a slippery road since. From that first tax to now, there's probably thousands. So basically, taxes have been funding war for centuries.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Still funds
Who
wars
knew?
now. Do you know, true or false?
Okay.
Let me say it again. True or false? There's a tax on beards in Russia.
A tax on beards.
Beards. Yeah.
I mean, I'd want to say false, but from the way you asked it, I'm going to say true.
It's actually true. In 1698, Peter the Great imposed a tax on beards to encourage men to shave
Wow.
and adopt a European look. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So you'd be paying tax.
I'll be paying tax on this little bum fluff. Do you know the length that HMRC can claw back an investigation, like the period that they can actually stretch back to?
10 years? 20
More.
years?
20 years, you're right.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Wow.
So people think maybe, you may get away with it for a few years, but they can actually go back 20 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have had clients in the past who've had letters through for things that have gone wrong 5 years ago. To be fair to them, they had no idea. It was just like an honest mistake. But yeah,
Scary.
that was about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Very scary. The funny thing is, if they owe you tax, I'm sure they'll kind of have a cut-off limit. I think it's 4 years. So it's not really fair that they can chase you for 20 years and you can only chase them for 4. This is going to be a hard one for you to get.
Okay, let's try.
Do you know how many words are in the UK tax code book?
How many words?
Words. We basically have one of the longest tax books in the world.
2 million.
More.
More than 2 million words. 4 million?
More.
10 million?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
10 million. Talk about complicated.
Yeah.
You literally couldn't learn it in your lifetime.
That's insane. Maybe this is why the calls are, the call times are just too long. They're too busy doing the wrong thing.
What's so annoying is it's getting longer. More taxis, more penalties. It's going backwards. It's crazy. They should really look to simplify the tax system.
I guess it's all the loopholes, isn't it? They're
Yes.
every time there's a new loophole, they're trying to claw back on it.
Cat and mouse.
Yeah.
I get it. It's a challenge for HMRC because people are always looking to find loopholes. So, yeah, interesting reading. If you
Yeah.
get to a spare couple of years. Do you know you can claim tax relief on the cost of uniform and the cost of maintaining the uniform?
Yep. I did know that, and that's in one of my videos.
Hey, subscribe here. Did you know that if you win big on the lottery in the UK, you pay no tax?
Yep, I did know that, and that is why the lottery is amazing. And I actually don't think many of the winners actually know that. I think you just assume, especially with massive amounts of money like that, if you win £1 million, you would assume you'd be paying most of it on tax. But actually, all winnings are completely tax-free.
It's crazy because if you actually compare it to like your net pay, you would have to earn double the amount to take home the £1 million. You'd have to earn 2 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just shows you how actually lucrative a lottery is. So
yeah, exactly. They're willing to do that. I know.
Get your lucky numbers in for tonight. Do you know how much tax HMRC collected last year, 23 to 24?
500 billion?
More.
700 billion?
More.
Oh my goodness.
All those tax rises are paying off.
A trillion?
They're actually due to collect $1 trillion this year. Last year it was £830 billion.
Wow.
It's almost double what they collected in 2010.
Wow.
Have the services gone up by double?
No, they're failing.
They're
They're
worse.
completely, yeah.
Is there double the amount of taxpayers?
No.
I think tax burden now is the highest it's ever been. So it's really interesting that all the revenues are going up, but the performance and the debt's going up as well.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a business, you would be sacked.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Cool. True or false?
Okay.
You can get a tax deduction for a whaling boat in the US, but not in the UK.
True.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can get a tax deduction for whaling a boat. I don't know why. Maybe some of the politicians might have boats.
Yeah, probably. Always the way.
They're the worst Americans. But they are so bad. They're literally all in the pockets of the politicians. True or false? There's a country in the world that once had a tax on windows. The more windows you had, the more tax you paid.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's kind of like mansion taxes. It sounds a bit like the mansion tax.
It is pretty much.
I'd say that's true, but what country?
What country do you think it is?
I'd say it's a European country.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, I don't know why I'm thinking Scandinavian country. I would say Sweden.
It's actually England.
Really?
Yeah, it's England. I actually do see properties. I see the windows are bricked up, and I always think, is that not like a change of mind? But obviously, it's not. It makes
Yeah.
it look like there's either
There's less
previously a
windows,
tax
yeah.
on it, and they to avoid paying tax, they bricked up the window.
Yeah.
Tax you on anything, wouldn't they nowadays?
Exactly.
Um, do you know what the highest rate ever recorded of tax in the UK? The percentage?
I remember. I've definitely heard it was very high. I want to say 90%,
More.
95%,
More.
99%.
98%. It's
Oh my-
basically your whole money's gone in tax. That was in 1970.
I was going to say I don't even think that it was that long ago.
Yeah, in 1970, Prime Minister Harold Wilson had a tax rate of 98%.
I wonder how much. I wonder how much he had to earn to pay all of that in tax.
Hopefully a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because you'd think the 2% you need to have
Oh
a lot
my
to
God.
to live off.
How many people in the UK file a tax return each year?
I want to say no more than 15 million. 30 million.
12 million.
12 million.
Yeah, file a tax return each year. Legally entitled to, legally required to file a tax return. And you can use a Pay app for free. There's one type of earnings in the UK that's completely tax-free, no matter how much money you make from it. What's the only type of earnings in the UK that's tax-free?
The only type of earnings that's tax free.
Unlimited.
I have no idea. I would have said winnings, but that's not earnings.
Yeah, that's lottery
It's winnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Well done. Well done.
Got one right.
Hey. Okay. True or false?
Yeah.
The UK once had a tax on hats.
Okay. What, the taller the hat, the higher the tax?
It doesn't say actually the length of tax.
I'd say yes. I reckon it was like, like in the olden days, the wealthier people wore those top hats, and they're the ones that had to pay.
Yeah, do you know what? It makes sense because it obviously is a show of wealth.
Yeah.
Do you know what the tax was called?
Top hat tax.
Yeah, hat tax.
Hat tax.
Yeah,
Love it.
hat tax.
Original.
Hat makers even had to buy a license.
Wow.
Do you know how much the current inheritance tax threshold is in the UK before any tax is charged?
Yeah, 325,000. But actually, in the budget that's going to be coming out, they're talking about reducing it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Is there talk of like the new amount?
I think I read some about 125,000, but I could have heard that wrong. But they're definitely trying to
Reduce it.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense because house prices are always going up.
I know.
So effectively, you're bringing everyone into the tax
I know,
bracket.
but they're trying to bridge this gap, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Poor person just taxed to death.
I know.
And then taxed
And after
again.
that, exactly.
Yeah. Do you know how many days you need to stay in the UK to be classed as a UK tax resident?
183.
Good, good. Spend any more than this and you'll be taxed
Yeah.
in the UK. There's a special tax for playing cards in the UK that still dates back to the 18th century. Can you guess how much is charged now per deck? Deck of cards. what's the tax?
I'd say probably 30%, or
Um,
even more. No, I'll stick with 30.
It's actually 16p per deck. It's actually
Okay, so-
not a percentage. It's strange. I think back in the days, cards were quite popular.
Yeah, but it's funny because you're not taxed on winnings,
Ah, yeah.
on gambling.
That's
I guess.
very true.
Actually, no, that's not a winning. Is gambling a winning? We'll come back to you on that.
Yes, gambling isn't taxed because spread betting, which is stock trading, isn't taxed.
Fine.
I think it's a form of gambling, isn't it? But we'll have to double check that before we put the video
Yeah.
out. Yeah. This is my favourite one.
Okay.
Did you know? True or false, basically. There's a country in the world which taxes you for being overweight.
Okay. Which country?
Can you guess?
That's really interesting. I don't know
What's
why.
your favourite country? If you
I'm
think-
thinking Luxembourg. I feel like they're all pretty slim there.
To be fair, like, most of Southern Europe is pretty thick. I went to Japan and Milan, and everyone's in shape, but no,
Yeah.
it's not.
Where is it?
It's in Japan. And I
Ah.
do know why they did this because I know not long ago they had a really bad obesity problem, and their government wanted to solve it, and like a competent government, they did solve it. I think tax maybe might have been a bit harsh, but it worked. And I know they outlawed a lot of the sugary cereals, and they subsidise natural food. So I kind of can see why they did that. They might need to do that in America, to be fair.
I know. Japan is the most amazing country. Really, really
Yeah.
amazing country. I remember actually when I went there, and you can't put, there are no bins, but there's no rubbish. They just put their rubbish in their bag and take it home with them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a great country. Can you guess how many people in the UK miss the tax return deadline each year? You've got like 9 months to file and they still miss it. How many
Yeah,
people?
I think millions. I would say 1 million people miss it, but I think there's two reasons why. First of all, they might leave it to the last minute. I mean, I know as an accountant, I would always get the information last minute,
Yeah.
but also the deadline for filing your paper return is actually 3 months earlier. It's the 31st of October.
People get the
So
wrong date.
people, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. It's 1 million people.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know how much the fine is?
I want to say £150.
£100.
£100.
What country in Europe would you have to pay tax if you owned a fireplace? It's called the chimney tax.
France?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well done. This is an interesting one. See if you can get this one right. How many tax returns are filed on the last day?
Oh, loads. How many tax returns are filed? So you said there are 12 million people that do it. I would say 700,000.
Yeah.
Is it actually?
Yeah. You've seen this.
I haven't looked at
No.
these before, I
To be
promise.
fair, this is the first couple you got right, so I don't believe you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please follow my socials below. You'll see them here. And like and subscribe and follow along for more updates.